And we are back with Susan Lindauer. I'm your host, Jake Fox, and this is Black Tower Radio. We are broadcasting live on worldnewsradio.today. That's worldnewsradio.today. Also on 1040 AM, 92.1 FM, WYSL in Rochester, New York. Susan Lindauer, one of our longest guests we've had on Black Tower Radio, going back 6 years roughly. Susan Lindauer is an American anti-war activist and former U.S. congressional staffer. She was charged with a bunch of crimes that she did not commit in the run-up to the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Okay, sorry, you were about to interrupt me there, Susan.
No, I was just going to say I am most notorious as the second non-Arab American ever indicted on the Patriot Act because of my opposition to the Iraq War. And after my work as a congressional staffer, because of my deep antipathy towards sanctions and war and violence in all directions, I was approached as a back channel to Iraq and Libya. And by the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency, dealing with Iraq and Libya, in both cases, it was a covert back channel on the U.S. end, and therefore the American public did not know. But in this particular case, both embassies, the Iraqi embassy and the Libyan embassy, knew who I was and what I was doing, and they agreed to it. So in other words, when I went in the very first meeting, they were stunned. The Libyans were like, "What are you doing here?" Libya was particularly stunned. They said, I remember the diplomat said, "Why have you come here? This is a very important question. It requires a very important answer." And then I explained, and they had to run it through Libya, and it took about 6 months before Libya would agree to it. But I just went back to the embassy again and again and again, and I would take off my shoes, because when you come come inside, you're supposed to take off your shoes. I would sit my shoes down, and I would sit down modestly on my knees with my dress covering. I'd wear a dress, and I'd cover up my legs so that it wouldn't offend anybody, and I would just sit there for an hour. And I would write a letter to the ambassador saying, "I am here, we want to talk with you. I am here, we want to," and I'd write down whatever I needed to say, and until I finally wore them down. And they finally said, "Okay, we'll deal with you."
Yeah, I mean, I was going to get to that, but I just didn't. I mean, your whole story related to the Patriot Act. I just wanted to clarify that. You know, I don't think you did anything criminally wrong in that situation.
I appreciate that very much, because when they arrested me, they accused me of being an Iraqi agent, and they accused me of being in conspiracy with the Iraqi intelligence service. And my response was, well, I was a U.S. intelligence asset, and everything that I did was being monitored by the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency. But I had stayed true to my roots, as they always knew that I would. And I had, when Bush went into the war with Iraq, I was the one who had done the preliminary talks to resume the weapons inspections. And I was the one who had the meetings with Iraq's ambassador and senior diplomats. And we had worked it out. We had worked out all the details. And then when the United States conditions were satisfied, I took it to the Security Council, the United Nations Security Council. So actually, I have done some really wonderful good things in the cause of peace. But of course, the Bush administration did not want weapons inspectors in Iraq. And they said it was a crime that afterwards, when the weapons inspectors found no evidence of illegal weapons of mass destruction, they declared that I had committed a crime when I negotiated the weapons inspections. And which is, of course, I think very silly. But it was very dangerous. It was for 5 years, I was held under indictment with no trial or hearing. I was never allowed to have a hearing to prove that I was telling the truth. I was locked up in Carswell Air Force Base for a year without a trial. I was accused of being, quote, incompetent to stand trial. It turned out that I was not allowed to see the evidence against me until after the case was dismissed. Now, I could surmise some of this because I could see what they would refer like to a date or a year, and they'd say in 1999 Susan had a meeting with this, and so I could remember what was going on in 1999 or 2001 or whatever. But it turned out that the Iraqi exiles living in the United States, who were notorious forgers, notorious for fabricating stuff, they had invented a story, and it was fairly silly because it was very easy to dispute. In other words, it was silly and easy to dispute. They had said that I was meeting in New York on like 7 or 8 days in the month of September, including September 10th. Now, if I had spent the night in New York on September 10th, I would have been there on the morning of September 11th. And it was very definitely that I was not there. And then they said they didn't know. They obviously, whoever did the paperwork and who signed papers, they did not know. Whoever did this did not know the names of the diplomats, or they had my spelling. Here was the thing. It was actually very intriguing because it's a great spy story because they had my handwriting exactly right, but they didn't have the details right. So they'd have the name of a diplomat, but he would have left the country a year before this or that was taking place, and they would say that they'd make up stories. Let's just put it that way. There was not a lot of evidence that they put forth, but in fact it was just very, very few, like 4 or 5 things. It wasn't like pages and pages of things. There was like 4 or 5 things, and as soon as I saw each paper that they said, what about this? What about this? I said, well, I can see, because I've done spooky stuff for years. We learn how to spot a fraud, a forgery. We can tell, and we know these people are notorious for fabricating documents. So, for example, I was like, well, the name is wrong, and this guy left in March, and he wasn't here in December. And then we went to the records and found that I had been somewhere entirely different in that period of December, and I was invited to New York 2 or 3 weeks later, and in the week that that this was supposed to have taken place in New York City, I had said to a diplomat, I had sent emails to a diplomat saying, well, I cannot come that period of time. I would not be able to attend New York in that period of time. So the name was wrong. The date was the diplomat had left 9 months earlier, and then I have email communication saying that I was not able to attend New York, to visit New York in that period of time. So it would have been very easy for me to dispute this, but it showed the embarrassment that the Iraqi exiles were fabricating documents to try to destroy the lives of American citizens who had politically opposed them. And it showed how dishonest and corrupt those people are, for example.
Well,
that's probably more information than you were looking for.
Well,
but it's the kind of thing that you have to deal with when you're in my business. So, except for the fact that I was on trial for my life and I was facing 35 years in federal prison if I was convicted, it would have been okay. And it also turned out that, so there really was no evidence against me.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting tale, and our audience loves interesting tales, and especially ones as spooky as yours is.
Yes.
But we move on to another interesting tale. It seems that Soros and Hillary Clinton, I mean, we were talking about it off air, Soros, Hillary Clinton, they're not done together, are they, Susan?
No. And they should be. This is very bad for our society and our fabric of our society. And if you think that, I am sorry to say that if you believe that Soros is that we're exaggerating the Soros involvement in this, then you miss the point of the story I just gave you. Wherever there is high-stakes geopolitics involved, there will be players that will meddle from the outside, and they are quite willing to fabricate, falsify, and to create great harm and damage to whoever is in their way, and whoever opposes them will be taken down at any cost. Now, I'd like to tell everybody, we have found out the people who have been arrested for disturbing the peace, for burning American flags or burning police cars in some cases, they have been arrested, and they have admitted, they've stated directly, that they're being paid $35 an hour, which is $200 a day. And they're frequently not residents of the city that they're protesting in. They're being brought in from other states. Many of them did not vote. For example, in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, there were like 100 arrests, okay, a large number of arrests. And half the people were from Oregon. The other half of the people had come in from California and Washington State. Okay, like from California and Washington State. All of them had been paid, or many of them had been paid, and many of them did not vote in the state of Oregon. And so there's questions as to whether they voted at all. Some of them didn't vote at all. So they're saying, not my president, not my president. But we're finding that they're paid agitators. They're from out of state, and in many cases, they were not voters. Okay? So, but Soros is paying them a lot of money. $200 a day, that's $1,000 a week. Okay? $1,000 a week for a 5-day work week. Okay, and if it's a 7 days, that's $1,400. It's a lot, and also in Chicago, they found buses where the buses, they actually videotaped 5 city blocks of buses on both sides of the road, bringing people in from Wisconsin. And so they would come in the morning, do their protests in Chicago, and then they take them back out to Wisconsin. But they're not even from the city.
Yeah, there was not too long ago there was riots in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the chief of police came out on the news and said, most of these rioters aren't people from Charlotte. They're being bussed in here. I don't even know what's going on. And I mean, I think I know what's going on there. They're professional provocateurs, is what a lot of those guys were, in my opinion.
Yes, they are. That's true. And George Soros is trying to foment a purple revolution in the United States like he did with Ukraine. And I have to tell you that he's flirting with treason when he does it. I don't know that we have to allow, there's constitutional issues because, listen, people, I am an activist in my own right. And I believe, and in addition to all the things that I've done, I have been motivated by a deep opposition to violence. As I've said many times to the Arabs and to the Jews and to the Gentiles, I don't care who's doing the killing. I don't care who's doing the dying. I am against death. I am against the destruction. And because of my philosophy, which is that all life is sacred, all life is precious, on both sides, the Arabs would be willing to deal with me because they recognize that I would protect them as much as I would protect anyone else, an American. And the military respected me. The Defense Intelligence Agency respected me because they called me. They thought it was the soldiers. The Pentagon brass all knew what I was doing. They thought it was a little bit of goofy at first because they thought it was like, this goofy little. At first, they thought I was this goofy little peace activist who was going to try to save the world. But they thought that it was kind of nice that I was going to do that. But then they found out I really meant business and that I was serious about doing good things and that I was going to uphold the standards that had to be met. For, like in Libya, it was my operation that got the terrorists out of Libya. My operation that coordinated between Egypt and Tripoli, Gaddafi and Mubarak, and the United States triangulated to get Mubarak's support for getting for persuading Libya to Gaddafi to relocate the terrorists out of his country. And then, of course, as they left the country, some of them didn't make it to Tunisia because they died in the desert. And they're buried somewhere in the sand, you know. I mean, they're not even necessarily buried; their bones are rotting somewhere, are bleached in the sand somewhere, you know. But the point is, Gaddafi cleared them all out, and there was no reason for doing this, the Libyan war or the Iraqi war. There was no point to it at all. And that brings us to Donald Trump. And why is Soros so agitated? And what does Hillary Clinton hope to accomplish at this point? And that is a deep, I think it's a great tragedy, because I think that truly 6 months from now, once Trump is in power and once he's inaugurated and he's actually had a chance to execute his plans, and we're going to talk now about how desperately they're trying to destabilize this. But I think the entire planet will breathe in 6 months from now. You can all be skeptics today, but 6 months from now, every single sane person on this planet is going to breathe a sigh of relief that Trump has eliminated the funding for the Syrian rebels. He has stopped providing money, training, and weapons to men who behead 12-year-olds and 4-year-olds. Okay? He's stopped funding terrorism in the Middle East. Now, this is big business. This is the dirty part, the dirty underbelly of the military-industrial complex. They need war. Trump wants to bring the money home to the United States and start rebuilding our cities. Trump is not a racist. He wants job opportunities for all blacks and legal Hispanics. Legal, that's the operative word, legal. And I'm not even going to get into the dispute over what's legal and what's not legal. The law, the law decides what that is. And he's like, he's married Trump is married to an immigrant, a legal immigrant, and he supports legal immigration. And that's all I care about. But the black community is going to have more opportunities because of this. We're going to stop wasting money on these wars that are overseas, that are creating massive chaos and destruction of property, and creating a migration problem. When it has been said by people who are not connected to Donald Trump that once financing for Syrian rebels is cut off, no more money, no more weapons, no more training, military training. This will die out in 60 days. It will die very quickly. When they can no longer buy bullets and they can no longer pay their Islamic radicals the Soros money, $200 a week or whatever they're getting, some puny thing, cigarettes. They get like $200 and cigarettes. When the money is gone, this will die very rapidly. It will die off. And all the refugees not all the refugees, but a large number of the refugees in Europe will go home. They won't stay in Europe. They don't like the food. They don't like the climate. They don't want to live in cardboard boxes on the street. They want to go home. They really do. And now some of them do want to stay in Europe, but there's no future for there. They would rather go home and rebuild their own societies where they will have comfort and respect, and they know their way around the community. So if we can stop the war in Syria, the refugee camps will be emptied out, and the crisis will end. The refugees will stop fleeing Turkey to go to Greece. The whole thing will change and shift back. And I'll tell you, the best money we will ever spend is to fly those people home and load up American airplanes and give them a one-way flight back to Syria so they can rebuild their society. Take the entire families and send them home. Everybody gets to go home. A free ticket home will be the best money we've ever spent on the Middle East to get these people out of Europe and back where they want to be, which is at their home. And 6 months from now, when we're close to that objective, I think everyone in the whole planet is going to breathe a sigh of relief that Donald Trump is president. I do not. I think that, for all of the who are listening to this saying, "Oh, he's a racist. He's a racist. He wants to build the wall. We have to. Oh dear, oh dear." Let me tell you, war is the ultimate act of racism. War is racism. You are targeting people for extermination. You're destroying their communities. You're killing their children. You're destroying their schools, their hospitals, their marketplaces, their homes, on the basis not of who they are or what they have done to you as individuals, but just because of the name on their passport or the religion. And so war is racism. It really is. And so those people who are saying that they don't like Trump because he's a racist, Hillary Clinton is a much worse racist. She really is. And she's a huge warmonger.
Relating to Hillary, why do you think Julian Assange targeted her? I mean, it seemed like a personal vendetta he had against her.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because it goes back to the original WikiLeaks and Bradley Manning. I would like everyone who supports Julian Assange, who's grateful to Julian Assange for WikiLeaks, I hope that you will also support Bradley Manning, who's now called Chelsea Manning. Bradley Manning considers himself to be transgender. Okay, so Bradley Manning's now called Chelsea Manning. Okay, it was Bradley Manning who first accessed the State Department cables for Hillary Clinton. And he copied and pasted and downloaded all of her State Department cables and gave those to WikiLeaks. Okay? And so Bradley Manning and WikiLeaks and Julian Assange are connected, and Hillary Clinton has been a savage enemy, malicious as anything, and that Bradley Manning she tried to get him life in prison, but instead he, quote, only got 35 years. And many of us are now imploring President-elect Trump to have a commutation of sentence for Bradley Manning to 10 years, because that is the standard, even if you find him guilty, and he is guilty. Bradley Manning did it. He released classified documents to the world through WikiLeaks. And so he should be punished according to the laws of intelligence. We all recognize that. But the standard sentence is 10 years, not 35 years. That was malicious because Hillary Clinton was malicious. Hillary Clinton was involved in censorship, just like she tried to say that Julian Assange was a Russian agent, and they actually tried to conspire. They tried to invent all sorts of lies and dishonest stories about Julian Assange that have kept him locked up at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. It's all because of Hillary Clinton and her hatred and her corruption that she is fighting. They've tried to kill Julian Assange from inside the Ecuadorian embassy. Julian Assange's attorney was thrown in front of a subway car in London. A subway car thrown off a subway platform in front of a train. Okay, like Seth Rich was the DNC, the Democrat National Committee staffer, who gave the files, the DNC emails to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. He was killed as well. Sean Lucas served the lawsuit for the summons for the email server case on Hillary Clinton, and he died mysteriously. Everyone who has crossed Hillary, many people who have crossed Hillary Clinton have been killed. And I have to tell you, America dodged a bullet when we got rid of Hillary. We really did. We dodged a bullet. We are so much better off without Hillary Clinton.
And on that note, we will depart. Susan Lindauer, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. I'd like to give you the floor to plug any website or project or message you want to send to the audience. Go for it.
Okay, my book is Extreme Prejudice, and I hope that you will take a look at that. It's available on Amazon. But I also think that right now, I hope that everyone will give Donald Trump a chance to show who he is. There's been a lot of wrongful media reporting about him that is just grossly inaccurate. I myself laugh I laugh when I hear talk that he's a racist. He is going to focus on America first. He's going to focus on rebuilding our country, which is so necessary. We need to bring all those resources home. He's going to have a strong military. No one needs to worry whether he's going to shirk the military. He's not going to do that. But he's also not going to engage in frivolous wars. He's not going to pull out of NATO, but he's going to demand that NATO pay some of the costs of keeping those military bases in their countries. So right now, the United States is paying for we have a defense budget that's like 7 or 8 times what the rest of the world pays. And that's because we're paying for their security. They're going to have to foot their own bills. They're going to have to make some investments themselves. If they want to have the United States protect them, they're going to have to compensate us for it. That's entirely reasonable. The other thing is we're going to have some very difficult economic shocks coming in the next few months. And I truly believe that Donald Trump is the best person because he's gone through hard financial times himself. He's gone through bankruptcies. He's gone through economic restructurings where he's had to pull his businesses through economic recessions. And I truly believe that if we give this man a chance, he's going to be very effective. He's probably the best leader that we could hope for with the experience that we need. It's not failure. He's dealt with the problems in the past. He knows how, he doesn't back down. He's got incredible stamina. I'm very impressed, and I think we're in excellent hands that he's the best person who could figure out a way to do things differently. He is a maverick. He's going to change how things are done. And it's like Obamacare. Obamacare does not work in its current form. There's certain things about it that are good, like it covers pre-existing conditions. But one of the things that he has said is that instead of having state insurance policies, he's going to have national insurance policies so that the entire country will offset itself. Well, instead, or having regional insurance, so that all of the population will diffuse the costs. And this is going to this is actually going to help drive down costs. So he's going to take the basic concept of Obamacare and just fix it so that it works better. So it's not exactly accurate to say that he's a racist. It's not exactly accurate to say he's going to get rid of Obamacare. We're not going to have anything. He's going to change it. He's not going to eliminate Social Security. He's going to fix it so that we can make it work for a long time. We want things to work. We have to do things differently. He's going to bring a fresh approach. And some of the changes are going to be a little bit upsetting because we're not sure what's going to be on the other end. But we've got somebody who's going to shake up the government. And believe me, the government needs it. So on that note, people don't. We're in good hands. This is not the crisis that George Soros is. Don't buy into George Soros' message. Peace is a good thing. It really is. 6 months from now, we're going to be thankful that Trump is in power.
Thank you very much, Susan, and we'd love to have you back on again in the future.
Okay, thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And that was Susan Lindauer. Up next is Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer. Stay tuned.